I think if you need redemption, seek it. If someone you know needs your forgiveness, give it. And a minister told me one time, he said, when you forgive someone, that doesn't mean you have to be their best friend forever. It just means in your heart you can let go of the pain. And I've had that happen with friends or family who, for some reason, they thought I'd slighted them, or I felt like they'd slighted me. And I've learned to just be still and wait sometimes and be gracious. Take the high road, keep doing what you're doing, and eventually it will all work out. It might be years.
That's Lenora Worth, author of more than 100 fiction books, my guest today on the Practical Faith Academy podcast. A number of her books share themes of forgiveness and redemption, and as it turns out, Lenora's faith life also contains themes of forgiveness and redemption. As she shares her story and her faith tips today, you'll learn more about the difficult topics of forgiveness and redemption, and will come away with ideas for how to make them a substantial part of your 7-day practical faith. I'm Cecil Taylor of Cecil Taylor Ministries, teaching Christians how to live a 7-day practical faith. Everything I do, whether blogs, books, or videos, is about taking our faith from Sunday into the rest of the week, applying scripture and faith to life situations. In the Practical Faith Academy podcast, I add other voices with other life experiences to understand how they put faith into practice. I hope you enjoy and benefit from these podcast interviews, and I appreciate you sharing this podcast with others. I'm joined now by Lenora Worth, and just in time for Christmas. Lenora, welcome to the Practical Faith Academy podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Before we get into all the questions and everything, I just noted today, I went back, I had read through all your bio before, saw all the books. I thought, oh, she has a lot of books. I went back and counted today that you have written 32 books this decade. That is just...
I think so, yes.
That's incredible.
I think overall, I sold my first one in 1993, and I think I'm past 100 now.
Wow.
I think it's like 115 if I count the novellas, so... Yes.
That's so prolific. I can't imagine even writing 32 in my life, much less in a decade. So are you just constantly writing? Do you have multiple books going on at the same time?
I don't write them all at once, but I have been known to be working on 2 projects at once. But it seems like I'm writing all the time, but, we stack them years out. So usually the ones that people see on paper are actually ones I'd written maybe part of it last year or the year before, and it's just now coming out.
Sure.
I've kind of slowed down lately, but I would say, yes, the last decade I have written back-to-back books with like a 2-day rest, and then I go right into it again. And
Wow.
It just kind of hit me this year, hey, maybe I should slow down a little bit.
Stop and walk around that lake near your house, right?
Yes, like, hey, I have a house, I have a lake. Maybe I should do some other stuff, but I love it. I love writing, and it is commercial fiction. I always tell people that. I'm not the person who's going to write the great American novel, and that'll be it. I'll always be famous forever. I'm the person that writes the short commercial fiction that gives me a day job.
That sounds good. Well, let me go ahead and get into it then. And one question I'd love to ask people when I bring them on this podcast is when I say 7-day practical faith, which is the theme of my ministry, what does that mean to you?
Well, when I saw that question, I thought about that. I thought, that's interesting. And how do I feel about that? And I thought about the word practical. And practical, I think it comes from the word practice, somewhere in there. So I think it means to me, I want to practice my faith every day in some way. That doesn't mean I'm going to, walk the streets of downtown with my Bible up, even though sometimes I feel like doing that. But if I see someone, give them a smile. I don't care who it is, what they're doing, what their position in life is. You can smile at someone, and that shows the light of Jesus through you. And so every day, I read my devotionals, I pray, I hope to have a good day. It doesn't always go that way, and I'm not always smiling, but just I would say, do on Monday what you do on Sunday. If you're worshiping and praying on Sunday, keep doing that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Don't be one of those people who gets home from church and kicks the dog or tells your child to go to his room. Just try to live the life that Jesus wanted us to live, and that was to love one another in a practical way.
And one reason I even went into this ministry and started doing this is people would tell me, I can do that Christian stuff on Sundays, but I have a hard time doing it the rest of the week. And I've realized also how Christians can come across as being hypocrites if we don't live out what we learn on Sundays. And I think that aligns with what you're saying there.
Yes, exactly.
So what are your influences? Who were your spiritual mothers and fathers as you grew up and became an adult?
So many people. When I was young, I was the youngest of 7 children. And so they were all older than me, and some of them much older than me. And I had 3 sisters and 3 brothers. 6 of them have passed. I mean, no, 5 of them have passed. And there's my sister, one more sister and me. And the middle sister, Glenda, she was one of my best influencers and encouragers. She was a devout Christian. And she was the one that did try to practice her faith every day. And she would bring us all together, try to keep us all together, because we were always, just any. And so she took me, she's like my second mother, because my mother did not drive. So Glenda would come and pick me up on Saturdays and take me into town, and we'd go shopping. And one day she took me to the Carnegie Library. And when I walked in, I just knew. And so I had my library card, and she signed me up for a children's book event that I think it was like 3 or 4 Saturdays in a row. And I just fell in love. And so that was a big influence on me wanting to become a writer, because I did not know there was a place where I could go and just pick books, take them home, return them, and do it all over again. It was wonderful. So she was my first, probably she's the most important one. And then I think of teachers I've had. I know I had one teacher, she was very stern, and she told me, if you quit flirting and laughing, you could probably become a writer.
So that was your hobby before you were a writer.
Yes, I was a social butterfly. Got in trouble all the time. And then in the 4th grade, we had, that was later, that was a high school teacher, but my 4th grade teacher was, again, very stern, very prim, and she gave us a writing assignment, and I just loved it. And the other children didn't want to do it. I didn't want to stop doing it. And she did tell me, she said, I think if you apply yourself, Lenora, this is what you'll probably wind up doing. And she was right. I sold short stories on the school ground and made 25 cents so I could buy milk, chocolate milk. So
how about that?
It worked.
It started early. Wow.
It started early, and that's probably what I get paid for each book now when I think about it.
Unfortunately, right?
Yes.
Well, I think that speaks so much. Your story speaks so much to being able to say a key phrase or a key thought to somebody at just the right time when they need it. Because when I think back, and the biggest influences on me, it was people who came in at just the right time to say just what I needed to hear right then.
Mm-hmm. That's all I needed, was that one push from a stern teacher. And I'm like, okay. She was right.
Well, very good. We're talking with Lenora Worth, a prolific author, as we've established, and you've written a number of Christmas-themed fiction books. That's one reason I thought of having you come along in December. What is so special to you about Christmas?
Well, Christmas is special because of Jesus, of course, the birth of Jesus, and it's magical in a way that is hard to explain. There's the commercial Christmas that makes it all beautiful and shiny. And then there's the grit of what really happened for Christmas to become Christmas. And when you think about that and the world today, and we're all this society where we want it and we want it now, and we just don't stop and take the time to just be at peace and know this is what happened all those many centuries ago. And I like to, when I finish decorating or finish, destroying a cake that I'm trying to cook or whatever, I like to just sit and look at the lights and look at the Christmas tree and think about how blessed I am. And I think we all appreciate that about Christmas. I think we just get caught up in the rush of trying to have the best, the biggest blow up thing. And I those things scare me. So I don't even put them in my yard. Let's see who can have the brightest lights in their yard and who can just make it the best Christmas. The only way to make it the best Christmas is to have that light in your heart. So
I agree with that.
try to do.
Although I'm one of those people that has some inflatables, not too big, but some inflatables and some lights. But you know what? There's a nativity scene there. And
Yeah.
I have to tell you, just throw this out. The nativity is this kind of cutout type of thing. It has a light shining on it. Very plain, very beautiful, I think.
Oh, I love
And
that.
I moved it this year to a different part of the yard. And I didn't do this on purpose, but I realized all of a sudden it put a different shadow right next to my door of Mary and Joseph.
Oh my
It is so
goodness.
perfect.
I love that.
I almost want to go like mark it in the yard so I put it there again in
Yes,
the future.
we used to do that. I ordered my husband for Christmas the pattern to make the white wooden Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, and he put a spotlight on it after he made it. It was just so pretty, and we just put that and a few lights, and we didn't make a big deal. And everybody loved it. And when we moved away, we weren't going to bring it with us, and everybody begged for it. They wanted to put it in their yard, even the ones that had the big blow up thing, which I don't want to criticize people who use those things. They're just not for me.
Right. Well, you've kind of answered this a little bit already, but I want to ask you a little bit more specifically. I've written a blog series during December on putting Christ into Christmas, and I want to hear, how do you put Christ into Christmas?
Well, I think, that's probably what I did just answer, is just remembering him more and maybe, studying the Bible and reading the story of Jesus more, even if I'm alone by myself. My favorite thing to do every Christmas, and people always, now they expect it. I had a friend who was moving, and she had these cute little Christmas cups that were like, I don't even remember the brand, but it's a brand now that's probably worth a lot of money, but they were just perfect to me, and she didn't want them. And I said, "Oh, these are so cute." She said, "Take them." And so she gave them to me, and I still have them. And whenever we get our ornaments out and I find those cups, I immediately wash one and make me a cup of coffee. And I always take a picture of it and say, "Now it's Christmas." I put it on Facebook and "Now it's Christmas." And I drink out of those mugs, and they're white. White cups to me make the best coffee. They're white with little holly bushes painted on around them, holly leaves. And I don't know. I just love it. And I just posted one yesterday to Facebook because I found my cups, made my cup of coffee, and I thought, now it's Christmas. And that's the moment, that I just kind of remember, okay, this is what we're celebrating. We're going to have a good time, try to have a good time, because I know some people have a hard time with the holidays because of family issues, but I hope that even those people can find some time to just, be thankful and hopeful that things will be better.
I really like what you said earlier about grit as opposed to the shininess, the grit.
Yeah.
I just heard a song the other day for the first time that really described in detail what it was like for, well, not too much detail, but still what it was like for Mary to have a baby in a stable and Joseph to be there, and he's not a midwife, and so just the complexity of what they did, and the grit and the humility of the moment. So I like when you said that about,
and the courage that they both had, and so many things could have gone wrong, but they didn't give up. They believed.
Yeah, they had to believe all the way through for the
That's
very
right.
moment, right, that they
That's
found
right.
out in their own
Exactly.
way. Yeah.
Yes.
Author Lenora Worth is my guest today on the Practical Faith Academy podcast. And Lenora, you have said that in your Amish series of books, the theme of returning home runs deep with an emphasis on forgiveness and redemption. And in this Christmas season, surely there are listeners who will be returning home, perhaps to difficult situations. What have you learned from writing your books that might inform our listeners on the topics of returning home and forgiveness and redemption?
Well, yeah, it's hard. Redemption and forgiveness is very hard when you feel like you've been slighted or someone has hurt you. And family being together with family can either bring out the best in people or the worst. And some people have those magical, wonderful Christmases and all the pictures and everybody's laughing. And then you find out 2 weeks later, well, this son knocked that son over, and this daughter got mad at this sister-in-law. And by the time Christmas was over, they weren't speaking to each other. And you're like, oh, that started out good and it wound up bad. But I have always tried, and I had a big dysfunctional Southern family, and I loved all of them, but sometimes they made me, a little loony. And I always thought, I still need to go home and see them. I try to see all of them. And if one of them wasn't speaking to me, I still send them a gift and a Christmas card and wish them, Merry Christmas. But I think if you need redemption, seek it. If someone needs your forgiveness, give it. And a minister told me one time, he said, when you forgive someone, that doesn't mean you have to be their best friend forever. It just means in your heart, you can let go of the pain. And I've had that happen with friends or family who, for some reason, they thought I'd slighted them, or I felt like they'd slighted me. And I've learned to just be still and wait sometimes and be gracious, take the high road, keep doing what you're doing, and eventually it will all work out. It might be years, but eventually you might hear from that person, or eventually you might get the courage to write them a letter or call them. And I just say, if you need it, take it. If you need to give it, give it. Redemption and forgiveness.
I think that's great advice, Lenora. Plus, the whole idea of protecting relationships, and you can only do so much on your side.
Exactly.
And this is really appropriate to talk about on a podcast like this. We talk about putting faith into practice, and then we have to go deal with the hard things of life about forgiveness and redemption and people not speaking to each other. And especially in this era, we have a lot of that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I'm in a situation where there's a family member who I think I've done everything I can, and they still don't want to talk to me right now. So,
Yes.
like you said, sometimes it takes years. I feel like things will come around at some point.
Yes.
But what can you do?
Well,
At a certain point, it's not in your hands.
one of my favorite verses is "Be still and know." And when we moved to Florida, I lived in Louisiana for 30 something years or 30 years, and it took me a while to adjust. And I was kind of sad. I wasn't depressed, but I was definitely just sad. And everywhere I'd go, for some reason, I'd see that verse, like "Be still and know." I saw it when we went to our first Easter service in Florida. It was in the handout. "Be still and know." That was the verse that day. And then I think I saw it. Well, I bought a necklace. I went to an street art festival, and there was a necklace with "Be still and know." I bought that necklace, or my husband bought it for me because he was trying to cheer me up. And it was like that became my verse to remember. Just be still and know and wait, and wait on the Lord. And sometimes that's all you can do. Like I said, I have relatives now that I haven't heard from in years, and I know that I make sure they're okay, and that's all I can do, and just wait. And the good thing about if you're in a relationship like that, you have the authority and the ability to pray about it every day. And we don't know when those prayers will be answered, but for yourself to make you be still and know, you can just pray every day. And hopefully one of you will find the courage to reach out to the other one.
I think that's terrific advice. Thank you. I'll say that personally. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What do you think is the hardest part about putting faith into practice?
I think what we just talked about, just really forgiving people and asking for forgiveness. It's very hard to admit you're wrong, and it's very hard to want to hear that from someone else. But so much goes into putting your faith into practice. It has to become a habit. I can't imagine someone going to church on Sunday and then deciding, well, I don't need that throughout the week. No, brother, that's when you need it the most. When you're in the traffic jam, when you're late getting your children to school, when you get a call from a children at school, when you forgot to pay a bill, when a package got lost, all these things that we take for granted. We just have to practice our faith, and instead of road rage, just road prayers, and be a prayer influencer instead of someone who doesn't use prayer. Prayer is free. And I was thinking about people being pardoned. That's the thing right now. Who's going to be pardoned for this or that? And that's fine. And I thought, well, we can all be pardoned by Jesus. All we have to do is ask him. And, he doesn't expect anything in return. He doesn't expect a payback. He can pardon you, and nobody else has to worry about it. So it's really that simple and that difficult.
And we have to keep going back, in my case anyway, and I think most people ask for a few more pardons.
Yes, every day. That's what I was thinking. Well, every day I have to say, okay, Lord, it's me again. Yes, I messed up again.
Well, tell us about your latest books and your next one and how people can find your books and follow you.
Well, I have two out now. I've got them here so I can remember what they are. One is the Christmas Canine Guardians, and it's with my friend Kathy Lee. It's two novellas, and they are the last two books in a long series that our readers love, these suspense books, and they all have wonderful canine dogs, different breeds in them, and the dogs are the heroes. They help save the day. And I remember watching Lassie, so it's like, my dog gets to save the day like Lassie. So that's out right now, and it just hit #1 on the Publishers Weekly list. Yes.
Wow, congratulations.
I was shocked. But it was so excited. And I know the others ahead of us helped make that happen, because the readers just really are very loyal and they love these books. So that's out. And then I was with my friend Shelley Shepard Gray and Rachel J. Good in the Christmas gathering, speaking of people getting together for Christmas. And that was the theme we were given by our publisher. And mine is called We Gather Together, because I love that hymn, We Gather Together. And I know it's more of a Thanksgiving hymn, but it just seemed to fit. And the young girl, as a matter of fact, she loves to sing. And so the young man, they're both at this big inn that I created in some other books. And one's there for a wedding, and the other one's there for a family gathering. And they really like each other. They meet down by the lake, and it's cold, and she's singing and he hears her, and they like each other. Then they realize their families do not like each other, and that they're not being truly Amish because they won't forgive each other, and they moved away from each other, but they still don't like each other. So the whole week is about these two young adults bringing these two grandfathers together after all these years. They were mad over one of them winning the woman and the other one didn't win. And so the whole thing becomes them coming up with ways to bring everybody together, and the people who work at the inn help them. And, it was fun to write, because been there, done that.
That's a great inspiration. So those are the two books out right now, and I think you have one coming out first quarter or so of next year.
I have, you're right, I do. It's undercover in Amish country, and it's set in Sarasota, Florida, near Pinecraft, the Amish community. Yes. And that was talk about redemption. That was a really, really, I loved writing the book, but it was a tough book to write because the hero, he had left the Amish, and but he became a police officer, but he lived near Pinecraft so he could guard the Amish and watch out for them. So he'd left, but he hadn't really left. So he has to help this young woman who's been through a lot of trauma. And they were characters in another book, and they got their own book.
Now, when you're writing these, you're writing about a lot of different scenarios, but I know you're a faith-based writer too. So is that interwoven in there, or it's just kind of the paradigm?
It's interwoven because the Amish are very faithful people, and even though he's left the Amish, he's still faithful. He believes in God, and so they might practice their faith a little bit differently from what we do, but they still strongly believe in God and Jesus. And yes, that's very heavy in the Amish books, but not in a way that would annoy you. But it is definitely the root of the whole story is to bring them back to their faith. And so a lot of Amish in reality do leave, but a lot of them come back too. And they have to go through certain steps to be admitted back into the church and the community. But it's like I said, they just ask God to pardon them, and they work it out, and they have to sin no more. And so, but this was probably one of my favorite books to write, even though it was the hardest book to write because it went through a lot of changes. And but I kept the core of that. The hero came to me in the other book, and he kept, I want a book. I'm like, you need a book because you got all these problems, and we need to fix that. So he got his book. And it's a little bit different from what most Amish books, but I try to make it as authentic as possible within reason when you have bad guys chasing you. So they threw oranges at the bad guys. No, they didn't do that. But it was fun. And after I wrote that book, that's when it hit me, maybe I should just slow down a little bit. That was tough. I think next year I will, I'll try some new challenges. I might do a little indie work, and I've got some quirky contemporaries I'd like to write. They'll still be Christian based, and so they'll be using a lot of that practical faith that we talk about. And I'm looking forward to that, taking a new road, a different road. So, but still writing.
Very good. I'm glad you will be. And, when we met last year, we had a delightful conversation, and this has been delightful and meaningful both. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you for working me in with all of my health issues, and I'm glad I made it.
Lenora Worth is such a fun person to be around with a lot to say, so it's been great having her on the podcast. My next guest is Lori Hatcher, an author who has been an influence on my writing and my ministry. Lori always has wonderful nuggets of inspiration and intelligence, and I expect the same from her on the first Practical Faith Academy podcast of 2025. She'll start the new year off with a bang for us, I'm sure. It's not too late to catch up on a couple of December series I've been posting online. The first is my Advent devotional series, The Eyes of Isaiah. I walk through how the prophet Isaiah foresaw every stage of Jesus' life, and I discuss what that means to us this Advent. The second series is in my 7-day Practical Faith blog. It's called Putting Christ into Christmas, to which I alluded earlier on this podcast. Check out my ideas on either the Cecil Taylor Ministries Facebook page or on ceciltaylorministries.com. Either click on blog at the top of the page or scroll down to find links to the latest posts. My other website is unisonparenting.com, and I write a Thursday blog there, plus a few other posts from time to time. Please visit unisonparenting.com and check out my blogs and my new book, Unison Parenting, The Comprehensive Guide to Navigating Christian Parenthood with One Voice. I want to stay in touch with you and for you to stay in touch with me, so please register for my free monthly newsletter if you're not subscribed already. There's one newsletter on practical faith that you can add from CecilTaylorMinistries.com, and there's a new parenting newsletter I'm about to launch on UnisonParenting.com. So pick one or both topics and sign up for free on those websites. Until next time, remember, God sends you into the world every day.